Hey, it's John Mallory from White Light Paranormal. Does your Panabox or Panasonic DR60 have scuff marks in the clear front display window? Well, if so, I'm going to show you a way to get rid of those.
The most common cosmetic issue with both the Panasonic DR60 and Panabox is scratching of this transparent display face. Now, as you can see, this one's got some surface scratching, but I've seen some that are much worse than this. So we're going to focus on getting those scratches out. Now, why does this window scratch more than the silver area surrounding it? Well, the silver area is made of a harder plastic, so it's not going to scratch as much. This display window is not glass, it's actually a soft plastic. And to get scratches out of glass, they recommend using a Dremel with a felt tip. But I've tried that on this soft plastic and it just creates gouge marks, so don't use that, just do everything by hand. The first step we want to do is we want to disassemble the case. So all we're left with is just the silver front face. We want to take off the buttons and we want to get that LCD screen out because we're going to be using a water powder mixture and we don't want any water damage of any parts. And it gets pretty mucky, so let's remove everything we can before we start. I just finished stripping this down and I'm just left with the front cover. I've taken the buttons out. I've removed the speaker and I've taken the LCD screen out. So I'm left with, there's a few little parts, like for example, where the battery touches, I've left those in. Those are kind of hard to put in, so no big deal, I can dry those off. But basically I'm just left with this front cover. The next step is to use painter's tape and to tape off the silver portion of the front cover and just leave that transparent window exposed. Now, there's a little seam line where the window fits into the silver cover, and I like to overlap that so I can't get any of this mucky mixture that I'm going to be using when I buff it into that seam line, because that's going to be difficult to clean out later. So I go over top of that with the painter's tape. On top of the painter's tape, what I like to do is use a thick, strong clear tape like Gorilla Tape. And the reason I use this is it's just an extra protection barrier because I'm going to be buffing with a watery mixture. And if I keep buffing for 15 minutes, this blue painter's tape is going to want to give way and I'm going to start buffing the silver portion of the front cover, and I don't want to do that. So by using this strong, thick, clear tape, it adds a protection barrier so I can't take off that blue tape. It holds everything in place. And also if I buff over onto this thick clear tape, it's not going to buff anything other than the tape. The next step is to take some cerium oxide powder. You can get this off of Amazon, it's not that expensive. You want to mix it with water. I like to use a plastic container and a stick. And you just want to stir in that powder into water until you get it the consistency a little more watery than toothpaste. I like it just about like this. And then once I get that mixed up, I like to take the stick and I like to drip it onto that transparent display face, just like that. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a wet paper towel and I'm just going to start buffing this. And I like to buff for about 15-20 minutes, checking about every 10 minutes or so, 5 or 10 minutes, just to see how we're looking, depending on how deep those scratches were. So I'm going to buff for 10 minutes and I'll clean it up and I'll show you what we get. All right, so I've got my wet paper towel and I've got my cerium oxide on there. I'm just going to buff in circles for about 10 minutes. And you'll find that as you go, it'll dry out pretty quickly, and when it does, just get that stick and just drip some more on there. Keep it wet and just keep buffing. So I'm at 15 minutes now, and the one thing I like about the wet paper towel is that this cerium oxide powder tends to dry out rather quickly. So by having a wet paper towel, it keeps the mixture moist so you don't have to keep adding more. The other thing I really like is this Gorilla Glue tape. It's really keeping everything in place, and it's keeping that painter's tape from fraying off. So it's been 15 minutes. From what I can see, it looks like pretty good results. So I'm going to take the tape off. I'm going to wash this thing up, and let's just look at the results that we got. All right, so it's been 15 minutes of buffing. I just washed the unit up. I put the LCD screen back in. I put the 2 buttons back in and the red button up here. It took me, I don't know, maybe a minute to put those in. It doesn't take very long. Here's the results. So as you can see, there's quite a difference. I still see a little scratch on this side and a little scratch on this side, but for 15 minutes, amazing what that has already done. Can you imagine if I buffed out for another 15 minutes, I could probably work those little scratches out. But it's like night and day. So if you want to re-energize the transparent display window of your unit, try this trick and see how it works for you. And I wish you good luck.